Lauren and I did the money industry and the financial institutions within the money industry and how they interact with consumers and consumers interact with them, as well as the various entities within, the money industry. And lesson preview: what are financial institutions? We'll go into detail covering that. How do you choose the right banking institution for you? And then various current issues consumers are faced with that are problematic, like identity theft, the housing bubble burst back in late 2006, early 2007. That's dramatically affected our economy and all of our lives, whether we realize it or not, and the subprime mortgages, which led to that. And then how are financial institutions maintaining profit margins and regaining consumer trust after the aftermath of all of that calamity?
Question number 1. Does anyone know what a brokerage is, or brokerage firm? No? Okay, well, we're going to find out. A brokerage firm basically facilitates the buying and selling of securities or stocks, and then we're going to talk a little bit about financial institutions, which is an establishment that conducts financial transactions between investments, such as investments, loans, and deposits, which we all know a little bit from Finance 101. Examples of these are commercial banks, which we all are familiar with, like Huntington, PNC, Skybank. We'll show a little here. And what I'm going to show you is just kind of a model that has this a cycle between the banks.
Oh, you might have to exit out, and then it'll be on one of the separate tabs.
There we go.
Or it just might be slow way on the internet.
Yes.
Yeah. I thought it was just the school I was at. Oh my gosh.
Okay. Here we go. Alright, so this is just kind of telling us how banks actually work. Let's see if I can get it all down there right now. Alright, so it starts out basically you as the consumer puts your money in the bank. That could be through a savings account or checking account. And then the bank then uses that money and then they lend that out to other people and businesses. And then those people and businesses pay the bank interest when they borrow that money or loan. And then the bank pays you interest for using that money to make the loans, and that they keep that difference. And then again, that goes back into your savings account. So you can see how that's just a big cycle, and they all work within each other like that. Just so you get a visual. You want to come back here. Okay, and then other examples of financial institutions are credit unions, insurance companies, and like we said, brokerages. So, how do you choose the best financial institution for you? Everyone has different needs, what they want to do with their money. So I recommend that you research what your options are and what are available to you. You can do this by going online to the actual, the firm's website. You can talk to your family and friends, see how they use their money and what institution they use. And then go into the actual firm itself, go into the bank and talk to someone and see what they can offer you. So now we're going to do this fun little game that I found. Okay. And then this is basically, we're just going to talk about competition and how you can get like the best bang for your buck, so to speak.
Did they need iPads?
No.
Okay.
We're just going to listen to it right now.
Hey, we were just figuring out where to eat in the food court. I'm starving. Ugh, I think my stomach is starting to eat itself.
Well, it looks like we have 3 choices. Pizza, pizza, or pizza.
I know! 3 pizza joints right in a row. Can life get any better? And they're all competing against each other for our business. That means we get better prices, more choices, and best of all, better pizza.
When businesses compete, consumers win. Each pizza place wants our business, but if they're all selling the same product, there has to be a reason to choose one place over the other. As customers, we are the ones who decide which is best. That means that each business tries to beat the competition by having some combination of higher quality, lower prices, bigger selection, and better service than the other guys. So we win.
Yep, that's great. Can we please get some food now?
We gotta figure out where to eat first. Click on the different pizza places and let's see how they're competing. When you're done, check back with us and we'll figure out where we want to eat.
So we're not going to click on the little places. They just kind of go through the offers. Like one offers like a hand-tossed crust. One has 5 slices for $5, and one has a bunch of toppings that you can choose from. And I wanted to show you that just because it kind of explains that rather than seeing different like options on a pizza, you can look at a financial institution and see what different offers that they can make you, like interest fees, fees for opening up an account, and what kind of different things that they could offer you, so you can make the best choice for you. And then we're going to click here, and then this is going to kind of just show us what sort of things to actually look for when you do decide to put your business in a firm. So they have here the difference between like a big bank, a regional bank, a credit union, and a direct bank here. And then different examples that you can choose from, like if they have a lot of branches offered available in your location, they have ATMs where they're located, so you can have the most convenience for you. And then if they have, 24/7, service availability for customer service. If you have an issue, can you reach someone to help you solve your issues? And then different fees that they can choose from on like depositing accounts and things of that nature. Okay, so now we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about identity theft. So the question I have for you guys are, what age group do you think has the highest rates of identity theft?
Maybe.
Senior citizens.
That's what I was going to guess.
Think older people? Actually not, which I was surprised by this as well. People between the ages of 18 and 24 actually have the highest rates of identity theft. And you can see here that identity theft is the fastest growing crime rate according to the FTC, and they estimate that about 10 million people become victims each year. So that means every minute 19 people become new victims of identity theft. A lot of people, 47% in fact, which is a huge amount when looking at one specific group, they have trouble getting credit or loans if they've been victims of identity theft, because that could definitely get your credit rate down, and then banks are going to be less likely to give you loans. Because of the high rates of identity theft, financial institutions get a negative reputation from this, because people think that they're not safe when they bring their money into them. So a lot of people opt to put their money, maybe keep it at home, even though they don't gain interest. They think that they view it as like a safer option for them. Okay. Now we're going to have a little game here called Identity Theft Face Off. And I'm just going to ask you a few different true or false questions.
Sounds like Mission Impossible.
All right, so we can pick who we want to be. First person, whoever shouts out.
Jim.
Jim? Oh, Jim. All right.
Oh no.
Says, yikes, Jim, you have a problem. It must have started last week. Remember when you got all those credit cards you never applied for? Well, it's probably because someone stole your identity. So in this game, we're going to ask just a few true and false questions so you can get your identity back. All right, so question number 1. If someone's stolen information about your financial accounts, it's best to wait for several weeks to see what they do with it before taking any action. Is that true or false?
False.
Good. Okay. So the first step that you should take is to contact your credit card company and ask them to close your accounts. And then you could also talk with your bank to see whether if you need to close other accounts or take other steps. And then they have a link there that you can go to see if you actually
Mustache.
Oh, the news there.
Then you get a facial feature.
Yeah. All right. Question number 2. If someone has stolen your identity and then you notice you're no longer receiving bills from creditors, this is a sign that your identity has been restored.
Sometimes.
So we're going to assume that they never took any action. They're just not receiving any other new things.
False.
Correct. So if the bills stop coming, it's still a sign that someone might be hijacking your identity, and they could possibly even just like change the address that your bills are coming to wherever they are. You said mustache, Alan?
For Movember.
Okay. The names of the 3 nationwide consumer reporting companies are Equinix, Expericorp, and Transamerica.
A little more difficult.
Yeah, this is really common.
Mm-hmm.
Good job. They're very similar. It's Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. And then you can also get a free annual credit card if you click that link, which is good to keep a check on how you're doing. All right, what feature do we want?
Eyes.
That's probably an important one. Okay. Identity theft refers only to the theft of your driver's license or name badge.
False.
False. Good.
Are you true?
I know.
We'll
Well,
find
those
out.
definitely are some signs that are some things that people can take from your identity theft, from your identity, excuse me. It's also could be just your name, your social security number, really anything, any personal information that you have on yourself. Yours.
It was weirder with yours.
All right, one of the best ways to protect your identity is to use online passwords only you would know, like your mother's maiden name or the last 4 digits of your social security number.
False.
False.
It
Good.
is so false.
So the first part of that's right, where you want to use passwords that only you would know, but don't use anything that might actually have information like that, because if someone does figure it out, it just makes it way easier for them. All right, yeah, eyebrows and lips left. Lips.
I feel like
Amazing talk.
eyebrows.
Oh, man.
Is that All right, if the stolen information includes your social security number, you can place an initial fraud alert by calling one of the 3 nationwide consumer reporting companies.
False.
I think it's a trick question. All right, let's try it out. Ooh.
All right.
Brian.
Well, come on, they're all.
You took a chance. It's all
We
right.
have another question. We have
Now we
another
don't get
chance. All right, if someone does steal your driver's license or any other government-issued ID, all you need to do is create a facility using a recent color photo. Just make your own. False. False. Good. All right.
Yay.
Eyebrows. You have your identity back. And then there's also, if you do happen to become a victim of identity theft, there's a link that you can choose with all sorts of resources on it that could help you get everything back in line.
And what term is it when you identify somebody by their physical features? Kind of ties into what we just studied.
Biometrics.
My man.
Got that one round.
All right, so how do we prevent identity theft, and how do you not be a victim? Keep an eye on your credit statements. When you get things, always look it over. Don't just assume that it's correct. Some people might be sneaky and try to start off with doing little small charges to see what they can get away with and then move up to bigger charges. So always keep an eye on that. And then use hard to figure out passwords, not super personal information that someone might be able to figure out. But they recommend using like a jumble of letters and numbers, so really just random things. Update your virus software regularly, so when hackers or identity thefts people go into your computer, make it as difficult for them as possible. And then also secure your personal information, like your credit statements, social security card, and bank receipts. If you don't keep those things like locked in a safe box, I recommend if you're done using them, put them through a shredder and just destroy them as much as possible. Don't just like toss them in the trash, because people can easily go through and get that back. All right, question number 3. Can anyone describe what caused the housing bubble burst? Alan?
People were owing more on their house than what it was actually worth.
Yeah, part of it.
Mhm.
All right, the housing bubble burst. What caused the current, recession that we're in, the financial crisis? Banks, basically in the early part of the 21st century and the 20th century, were the global economy was relatively good, despite the Russian debt crisis and Asian financial crisis of the late 90s. But there was a lot of confidence, so it was easy to get loans. More people were taking risk. There was an overvaluation of bundled subprime mortgages based on the theory that housing prices would continue to escalate. Didn't happen. There was a lack of the adequate capital holdings from banks and insurance companies to back the financial commitments they were making, which led to the financial crisis, which is still currently going on. The bursting of the United States housing bubble was one of the driving forces that led to the financial crisis of recent years globally, because a lot of foreign investors put a lot of stake in the U.S. housing market. So it wasn't just something that just affected us, and just something to remember. And it caused the values of the securities tied to American real estate pricing to plummet dramatically. Damaged global financial institutions dramatically. This also caused a tightening in credit. Not as many people were able to get loans. A lot of people lost their homes because of this. Left people homeless. And then also, because of all this financial crisis, many people were losing their jobs because we were in a recession. So a lot of companies were downsizing and they were hurting. This would include also Pontiac, if you're familiar with the make of car Pontiac. They actually went out of business. And we have a link. This is one of my favorite economists, and he just political theorist. His name's Paul Krugman.
More evidence today.
He's kind of funny, and his facial expression at the beginning is so priceless to me, but that's not part of the lesson, it's just humorous. So we will watch a portion of this, and he will kind of break down, sort of in a simplistic way, but it's Paul Krugman, so kind of.
In the housing market, U.S. home prices may fall for the first time in 13 years, according to the National Association of Realtors. Professor Paul Krugman recently said the long-feared housing bust has arrived. Paul Krugman is professor of economics at International Affairs at Princeton University and also a New York Times
terrified.
Yeah. Great to have you here tonight.
Good to be on.
Well, it seems that every time we get some data about housing, it is not particularly good news. Are we now looking at a housing cycle that is something we have not seen in decades?
I think we're looking at a housing cycle we've never seen. I mean, you just look at a chart of real housing prices, and the run-up since 2000 is completely unprecedented in history. It's bigger than the run-up in, you had isolated housing bubbles, in the late 1980s in Southern California. This time we've got a national bubble that's bigger than what we had in the most bubblicious regions of the country. This looks like, if history is any guide, housing prices have got a long way to fall, and the housing industry is going to go through a long drought.
Now, you've recently raised concerns about a possible recession based on what we're seeing with the housing market if there are other factors in place. Tell us how worried you are about the overall effects of this.
Well, if you actually do the numbers, you say how big could this be on housing, plus the effect on consumers who've been basically using their houses as an ATM and can't do that anymore. You're looking at a hit to the economy that is as big as what happened with the stock market crash at the end of the 90s, as big as the tech bust. What we don't know is how fast it comes on, and we don't know whether other things will, business investment will take its place. But you've got to say it's well in the range where a serious slowdown is likely, and an actual recession is certainly not outlandish.
And we're currently in that said recession. But he's the man. But I digress. How are financial institutions in the money industry bouncing back? Basically, how are they trying to regain consumer trust and build from the rubble that it was in? Customer service is paramount. They want to get us in there by bundling service deals, like how Lauren mentioned earlier, like banks They'll offer you money to open a checking or a savings account. They will drop a fee or a specified amount that you have to keep in your savings account. They'll just waiver all of those things to try and bring people back in. Or brokerages will lower their fees, their consulting fees and stuff like that. So reduce fees and costs, and then this will build, gaining consumer trust, and then financial institutions in the money industry can kind of bounce back with these tools and practices. Yeah, it'll bounce back. So.
Resources, but I just want to do a little quick recap of what we've learned today. So again, financial institutions are basically any sort of firm that can conduct a transaction, be that a loan or a deposit or an investment, if you will, and different firms that can be included within a financial institutions are banks, credit unions, brokerages. And again, I urge you, if you do choose to go towards put your money in a financial institutions or do business with a financial institution, research, because you want to be sure that you can trust who you're putting your money with, and that you know that they can take care of you, and you want to get the best deal that you can. And again, be sure you know what their policies are if something like identity theft were to happen, or if there is a housing bubble. They want to be able to help you with your money the best that they can. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Lauren, you asked the question, what is brokerage, but you forgot to share.